The Passover feast is a feast they do once a year, and traditionally there's 7 cups of wine in that feast. And scholars believe that when Jesus got to the third cup, he starts to say these words to the disciples: "This is my blood of a new covenant with you. Take and drink it." It's shocking on a couple levels. One, the rabbis weren't supposed to drink the third cup. They held it up and blessed it, and then they set it aside for the coming Messiah. So when Jesus starts to drink out of this thing and offering the disciples to drink out of it, they're going, "Oh, here it goes." Because they think Jesus has come to lead them in a political revolution over Rome. That's what they're hoping for. And so they start to get excited, but then Jesus drops these weird words. He says, "This is my blood of a new covenant. Take and drink it." Now, we don't hear what's happening, but those words are the exact words that a groom would say when proposing to his would-be wife. So they're like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna kill Rome. You want to marry me?" What? When a groom was going to marry a girl, he'd go to his dad, say, "Hey, dad, I want to marry her." So they'd come up with a bride price. So they would pay a price to get a chance to propose. Remember Jacob and Leah and all that? There wasn't a definitive contract that she had to say yes. So some people are like, this is so archaic. It's actually kind of a beautiful, like, you have to pay for the chance to propose to this girl. So he'd pay for the chance to propose, and then they'd get in a room and he'd fill a cup with wine with all their relatives watching and say, "This is my covenant with you. Take and drink it." If she didn't want to, she could slide it away, say, "No, man, you smell like a camel." Or she could take the cup and drink it, signifying she's saying, "I do." At which point she'd go to her town, he'd go to his town, and they wouldn't see each other again until the day they got married. What was she doing? She was keeping watch. She didn't know when the day or the time or the hour would be that he would come and marry her. So she would just be preparing for the wedding day. Meanwhile, she wouldn't be called by her name. She'd be called one who was bought with a price. The only way they could communicate was through the best man. He was the groomsman. He would take messages from him to her. He's like an archaic text messenger, you know, going back and forth. What's the dude doing? He is preparing a mansion for his bride. Now, I'm getting to a point here. If you're like, where is this going? He's preparing a mansion. In that time, the Hebrew people would build insulas in their town. And the insula was a family dwelling that each generation would build a new extension or addition onto, which was called a mansion. So mansion means apartment in Aramaic. And he didn't get to decide when it was finished. He'd have to work on it every day and look to his dad and say, "Hey, dad, is it done? Hey, dad, is it done? Hey, dad, is it done?" And then finally, his dad would look at the apartment and he'd say, "It's finished. You can go and marry your girl." So he'd get his groomsmen. They'd come into her town with shofars, blowing shofar horns, and she'd run down the aisle and they'd get married and make little rabbis and live happily ever after. Now, the reason I say all that is so that you, whoever's listening, might start connecting the symbology that we don't usually get, right? So Jesus says, "This is my covenant of the new blood. Will you marry me?" At which point, Jesus says to the disciples, "Hey, I got to go away for a while. You're not going to see me, but while we're apart in this engagement period, your name has changed. You are one who is bought with a price. And don't worry, though we're not going to see each other face to face, I'm going to send my best man, the Holy Spirit, to communicate between me and you." What am I doing? Well, I'm going to my Father's house where there's many mansions, and I'm going to prepare a place for you. Now, I don't know the day, the time, or the hour. Only the Father in heaven gets to decide that. But you need to keep watch because you don't know the day or the time or the hour either. So keep watch. The day's going to come like a thief in the night until one day when my Father says, "Green light, the day has come. Gather your posse, and I'm going to get my groomsmen, the holy angels, and they're going to blow their shofars, the 4 trumpets from the 4 corners of the earth, and I'm going to bring you home for the marriage supper of the Lamb."